get set. We're riding on the
Clueless
internet, cyberspace, set free. Hello, virtual reality.
Interactive appetite, searching for a website, a window to the world, got to get online.
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the
Clueless
internet.
Amazing.
Amazing. Is that the last story?
No, there's one more.
Oh,
There's one more story because we haven't yet segued into today in history we fucked up.
Today, I fucked up.
Welcome back to today in Welcome back to today in history we fucked up.
we fucked up. You and me.
As a nation,
Oh,
we fucked up all over the place.
as we always do.
So, this is the story. I'm only doing one story.
Okay.
Thank God. This is the story of the Battle of Trafalgar Square,
The Battle of Trafalgar Square.
otherwise known as the Poll Tax Riots.
There's a lot of horses in that image, Howard.
So all those things that they were feeding you on the news about the prison riots.
About the riots.
This is what they were ignoring.
Oh, yes.
So
It all comes full circle.
full squircle.
Squircle.
So March 1st, 1990, the Poll Tax Riot, otherwise known as the Battle of Trafalgar, is described as one of the worst riots to take place in the capital for over a century. The riot I assume they're referring to, a century ago, was the Bloody Sunday riots of 1887, which, according to Wikipedia, took place in London on the 13th of November when some 30,000 marchers surrounded Trafalgar Square, protesting about unemployment and coercion in Ireland. As well as demanding the release of MP William O'Brien, they clashed with the Metropolitan Police and the British Army.
Oh my God, they're taking on strong odds. Is like the story about versing Goliath.
Well, 2,000 police and 400 troops
Oh my
were
gosh.
deployed to halt the demonstration. 400 arrests were made and 75 people badly injured. Many rioters were injured by police truncheons and under the hooves of police horses.
Oh my God.
Two
I
police.
can't imagine the pain that must like. Oh, what is that?
This is an illustration from the time
Oh,
because obviously we didn't have cameras.
what is he hitting him with? What is that police officer hitting him with?
That looks like he's trying to drive a flag through that man.
Oh my gosh.
Two policemen were stabbed and one protester bayoneted.
Oh, bayoneted?
At some point, a trigger-happy James Compton Merriweather, conservative supporter and head of the firm Merriweather and Sons,
Oh, he sounds like it.
sounds like a cant, offered to use a 400 gallons per minute steam fire engine as a water cannon to clear the rioters from Trafalgar Square.
So he's going to try and shift him with some water.
So it's just like, spray them.
Spray 'em.
Fucking zaff them.
They'll fuck off.
However, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police and resident sensible person, Sir Charles Warren,
Is that his name?
declined. No,
Sensible person.
that's my name for it.
The resident
He
sensible
was like,
person.
"Yeah, no, you go carry on being a conservative. Just do it over there."
Yeah, away from me.
In comparison to the Battle of Trafalgar Square, some crowds of between 128,000 and 250,000 people were marching from Kennington.
A lot of fucking people coming from Kennington.
Kennington Park to the square. So Kennington Park is basically just over a bridge and then a walk up a main road to Trafalgar Square.
Okay.
So
that was their meeting point. That's a lot of people meeting in one place.
yeah, so between 180 and 250 people marching from Kennington Park to the square.
Yeah.
It took them about an hour to get to the square.
I fucking bet.
The poll tax was essentially a subsidy. It's a tax on movable property of the population. So
Oh, so if you move house, you get
Very
taxed
much
on
like-
the furniture that you move.
very much like the council tax. It dates back to like the 1200s. But in the 17th century, the poll taxes fell primarily upon the wealthy and powerful, and it wasn't too unpopular.
Okay.
There were grumblings within the taxed ranks, so rich people, about the lack of differentiation between income within ranks. Ultimately, it was the inefficiency of their collection, what they brought in and routinely fell far short of unexpected revenues. That prompted the government to just abandon the poll tax. So rich people complained, and the government went, so sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
sorry about that.
Sorry about that, yeah. We thought we might at least try it for a little bit.
But now we move on to the community charge, is what
The community charge.
the Tory government of 1989 called the poll tax. So the tax was to fund local government, instituted in 1989 by the government of Margaret Thatcher. It replaced the rates that were based on the national rental value of a house.
So it'd be how much a house is worth, how much you get taxed.
Essentially, yeah. So the system was unpopular because many thought it shifted the tax burden from the rich to the poor, as it was based on the number of occupants living in the house. So no longer was it on the value of the property, it was on how many people lived in the house.
Okay.
So you could have a big house with 2 people living in it and pay very little tax.
Okay.
Or you could have a small house with a big family
With 15 kids.
and pay a lot of tax.
Oh, no. That does seem a bit unfair.
The abolition of rates in the Conservative Party manifesto for the 1979 general election replacement was proposed in the Green Paper of 1986. So they were setting this up throughout their.
They'd had this one cooking.
Yeah, well,
for a while.
at this point, I think the Conservatives had been in power since like 1980. So this proposal was contained in the final manifesto for the 1987 general election. The new tax replaced the rates in Scotland from the start of 89 to 90 financial year, and in England and Wales from the start of the 1990-91 financial year. They had to.
The community charge, the so-called poll tax.
They had to put out a flyer because people wouldn't stop calling it the poll tax.
How it will work for you. So they basically just sent out a letter saying, please stop calling it this word.
It's the community charge.
Yeah,
It's
doesn't it sound nicer?
It's a bit condescending, this leaflet, to be fair. So this leaflet tells you about the main points of the new community charge system. When you have read it, you may feel as though it has told you all you need to know. But if you still have questions...
But don't be stupid.
But if you still have questions, you moron, the following free leaflets may help you tick the boxes for the moron things you need, you moron.
We hate you.
Fill out your name and address and send it to the guy. So yeah, it's just... Yeah.
So it's just saying, you idiot, here's how your tax works.
Yeah.
What
Well,
is,
it
what are the tick
even
boxes?
says it even says here, like, you may have heard of the community charge being called the poll tax, but the community charge is its proper name. This leaflet answers some basic questions about the community charge,
Like how to actually pay it.
like how to pronounce community charge.
Stop calling it poll tax. The community charge. What the fuck? Okay.
So yeah, so it was so this meant everyone would have to pay the same tax rates regardless of the size of house they lived in or how much money they earned, rather than on the estimated market value of the house, which is how it used to be done.
So that just seems like it's defeating the purpose, where poorer people will probably still pay more.
Yeah. So in the past, it was that what your property, your land, your house. What if it was a big house? It was a large property. You pay many tax money. Now it's literally the opposite.
So now if
So
you're
you can
the
have
two
a big house. It doesn't matter how much you earn, and there's 2 of you. You pay for 2 people. That's it. That's all you pay. You've got a family with elderly and all this other stuff. You pay for all of them, even if you've got a small house and you earn fuck all money.
Shit.
So nice one, Tories.
Thanks, lads.
Yeah. These rates proved to be much higher than the earlier predictions, since the councils realised that not they but the central government would be blamed for the tax, which led to resentment.
Of course it would.
So, now I don't like it. Even among some who had supported the introduction of it, the tax in different boroughs differed because local taxes paid by businesses varied, and grants by central government to local authorities sometimes varied capriciously.
Capriciously?
which means inconsistent and sudden.
I can inconsistently say capriciously.
God, that was a word. There's a few of them in here.
Buckle up.
So, mass protests were called by the All Britain Anti-Poll Tax Federation, which the vast majority of local anti-poll tax unions were affiliated. In Scotland, the APTU called for mass non-payment, which rapidly gathered widespread support and spread as far as England and Wales, even though no payment meant that people could be prosecuted. In some areas, 30% of former ratepayers defaulted. So basically, everyone just decided we're not going to.
We're not going to pay.
Nah.
Why should we?
Yeah. So
We don't have to. There's no law.
Yeah. At the moment, at the time, yeah, there was.
Oh, now there is.
They were saying that people could be convicted, but they didn't know. But they thought, well, if everyone just doesn't pay,
We can't
they're
afford
going to
to.
put everyone in prison.
Prison's paid by taxes.
They
just run out. Oh, and this is where the riots come from.
Yes.
Oh my
So
god.
while owner-occupiers were easy to tax,
The
non-payers.
prison riots came from this as well.
Well, the prison riots happened
Because it was overcrowding.
Well, it's all. It could be coincidence. It could be that that the guards got forewarning of what was going to happen. It could be that they, and this is a hypothesis put forward by other prisoners. It could be that they kind of, basically, the only people who weren't allowed in the chapel on the day of the prison riots were the sex offenders, and it may have been that the reason for that was so that they could leave them locked up in the warpath, essentially.
Okay.
They kind of planned the.
So they knew.
Hypothetically, they could have planned for the prisoners to storm through that area, beat up prisoners, therefore, be able to say it's a violent riot, and therefore extending the length of the riot and stuff like that. There were also, when the governor wanted to send in certain groups to try and retrieve prisoners and stuff like that, when he said that there was a risk of loss of life, the Home Office basically refused to send the people in, even though they had the perfect time to take the prison back. It was once the numbers were lower and stuff.
So they
there's
planned
a-
this. They essentially just planned this whole thing.
There's a conspiracy theory that the prison riots were going to happen anyway, and instead of stop them, they thought, hang about. The Home Office thought, hang about, we can use this. So
We could use this to our advantage.
that's a conspiracy theory, and I'll have none of it. So basically, they fucked it all up. The cost of collecting the tax rose steeply, and returns fell. Unrest grew and resulted in a number of poll tax riots. The most serious being the Battle of Trafalgar Square.
The fact that it's literally called the Battle
I know.
gives me sort of
There was
hints
clear-
that there's going to be a lot of fighting in this.
There was clear push and shove going on this day.
Yes, I agree.
Accounts of the day differ. So some lay blame on the police for poor tactics. Others say there was a violent hardcore of around 3,000 determined troublemakers and anarchists.
That probably makes more sense, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Anarchy was it was the perfect time for anarchy, wasn't it? At the end of the 80s and 90s, it was a perfect storm.
Was it the Satanic Panic? Or had that already passed?
Satanic Panic kind of props up every now and again throughout history. Whenever overly conservative groups of people decide that they don't like something, they just blame it on Satan.
Oh.
It's like, Satan's doing this thing with the music and the kids. And
What's a fortnight?
David Bowie did that. That song, that one where it's that guy reeling off the list of pop singers. Gina Easton, David Bowie, and he's reading them off. That was literally just a song where they remixed a guy reading to a church about how evil and how Satan had got into music.
That's awesome.
And they just put it to a fucking sick beat with the dun, 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 dun.
That's great. I really hope they made a lot of profit off of that guy. They're evil.
Average voters saw the day as an opportunity to protest peacefully, and organisers said there was a carnival feel to the day. Either way, many people were drawn into the chaos of the riot later that day.
Yeah. So you had a lot of people who were just there to enjoy themselves, and then you've got these.
Not so much enjoy themselves, but have a peaceful
dicks.
rally. So, you know,
Sounds like they're turning into a carnival. As he
food,
said.
peaceful sit-downs, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Peaceful sit-downs were actually the kind of the thing of the day.
Yeah,
It's a shame,
it sounds like it. Yeah,
It's a shame Auntie for having
cottoned on.
gotten on. Anyway, Steve Nally, former National Security of the APTF, recalls there was working class people there with their children, with their pets, with their friends, and with their loved ones. No one, I think, turned up that day to have any kind of protest that was going to turn violent. Journalist Martin Deason said, before it came to the poll tax riots, the poll tax demonstration was, like a lot of stuff at that time, it was very broad groups of people. There were Tories on that march.
There's so many people.
There were little old ladies that would demonstrate. He did say that in a very London accent. So,
Bunch of old ladies coming in.
because he said, my general view of the police then would actually contrast with my general view of the police now, which has completely changed. I'm now 40, and I see them as, most of them, as relatively honest blokes doing a very hard job, really well. Having said that, in 1990, I thought they were complete cunts. I
hated them all.
I absolutely hated them. I lived in Hackney in a squat, and they used to make my life hell.
So I wanted to batter them, but now they're all right.
The picture painted by the police was the opposite. They remember being subject to aggression and tension from the start. Richard Cullen, former police chief superintendent of the Metropolitan Police. Super Nintendo of the Metropolitan Police recounts, woohoo!
Not so bad.
No, he said there has been substantial disturbances all the way along the route to the march. From the time it actually left Kennington, most of our reserves were deployed to deal with groups that were causing disorder on the way. One police officer was threatened with being thrown in the River Thames.
That's a good threat that you can say to someone.
Move, or I will throw you in this
You
shit
said
water.
it's Thames. You're in it.
What a face full.
I'll put your horse in there as well.
Fucking cunt. I will kick your ass.
What an insult you can give to someone.
The image of the police at the time was one of brutality. Throughout the 1980s, images on the news and on the front pages reflected the violence of the inner city riots and the miners' strikes. The protests were broken up by police forces, and images of brutality could be seen almost every night during the strikes. By now, police were seen as the enforcing arm of Thatcher's government by working class activists. The Wapping disputes of 1986 saw left-wing demonstrators and striking print workers were regularly beaten back by riot police and their mounted horseback colleagues.
Not a good look there.
No. The riot came at a time of great political and societal unrest after 11 years of Thatcherism.
Thatcherism.
11 years as Thatcher as the Prime Minister. Jesus Christ. I can only
Borisism.
imagine 11 years of Boris.
I'm okay, thanks.
Are you ready to die now?
I'm ready to riot, dude.
So the working class had had enough of the dispossession and continued attacks of the Tory policy. So, the timeline of events, with first-hand accounts from Bollocks to the Poll Tax by Colin Revolting.
Bollocks to the Poll Tax.
Midday, Kennington Park. This is in the words of Mr. Revolting.
Revolting. What a good name. He is revolting as well.
By the time my friends and me arrive, Kennington Park in South London is spilling over with a sea of people. The sun is shining, and the march streams across the River Thames singing, "We won't pay the poll tax, we won't pay the poll tax, la 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 la."
We're making a right good time of this. People
Oh, yeah.
are like, I'm so glad I'm not at work.
Banners, right, included Yorkshire miners against the poll tax, tax the rich, and bollocks to the poll tax. And from many anti-political tax groups across the country. 2:00 in the afternoon, the crowd leaves Kennington and crosses the Vauxhall Bridge, making its way towards Whitehall, where at 3:00 organisers and protesters gather outside Parliament, where the march stops and some demonstrators begin a peaceful sit-down. That's them outside Whitehall.
Okay.
The orange...
It's a very nice building.
Oh, that's the Parliament.
Oh. Well, I thought it was.
So back to Back to Mr. Revolting. The orange-jacketed stewards stand beside the police and both urge us onwards. I've gone all different accent. But like many marchers...
Slipped in.
But like many marchers, we side with the sit-down protesters. Settling in the sun on the grass opposite Downing Street, one couple lay their baby on the ground to change its nappy. Very peaceful. Outside the Houses of Parliament, people began attempting to pull down barriers separating police from the protesters.
So it's getting a bit rowdy.
A little bit rowdy. Police and protesters clash. Mounted officers are called in to quell the crowd. Police begin truncheoning people who have begun to use impromptu weapons and projectiles, some in retaliation, others in aggression.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Back to Mr. Revolting.
All over some tax, man. Fuck.
Then a line of mounted police appear on the end of the grass. Someone shouts, "What sort of animal has an arsehole in the middle of its back?"
You, mate.
My partner, Christy, at the time, says to the parents with the baby, those cops are about to charge. They look at her like she's deluded. Moments later, the horses rampage. Everyone scatters.
She dies.
Fear and panic spreads. Christy and me lose each other.
Oh, no.
Trafalgar Square is a sea of people swaying back and forth in waves as police push protesters and the surge begins to happen. It's like being in a crowd at Glastonbury, my mate John says. 10 times better,
Loved
I think. Fucking love it. Look at this. Look at it. I got shit all up my back.
I've been trampled 3 times. Love it.
Oh, it's the life, mate. 10 times better, I think, never having been in a moment like this. I spot an older socialist clutching his newspapers to his chest. Are we into this, I ask? I don't know, he shrugs. But it's fun, isn't it? And smiling like he's on a ride at an amusement park, he's instantly swept away into the crowd.
Whoa. So he's there just like, it's really fun.
Yay!
Oh my gosh.
Whitehall, 3:30. An estimated 2,000 committed demonstrators are being slowly pushed up Whitehall towards Trafalgar Square by mounted branch officers in line formation.
Imagine if just the public come mounted on horses as well. Then you've
That
just
would
got
be
like
amazing.
you've got like a little battle going on.
But unfortunately,
They all died.
the story's not that fun.
Fuck.
Instead, it's really depressing and sad.
Oh, great, great. No, to end on.
Anyway, so the police officers at the moment, they're in a line
Yep.
of police horses, and
They are a strong wall.
They're pushing the crowd up Whitehall, because at the end of the street Whitehall is Trafalgar Square.
Yes.
So using a similar tactic to those using the miners' strike, police now sealed off the bottom of the square. So
With horses.
they're going to pinch them in.
Oh my
essentially.
god. What are they trying to do? Crush them?
So they've sealed off the bottom of the square. So while the mounted unit force the crowd towards them, they'll be compressed by the two lines. Tensions build and panic sets in at the top end of Whitehall. The trapped demonstrators become violent, and in a resurgence, fighting broke out across the streets that lasted about an hour before police launched another push, forcing the crowd into the bottom of Trafalgar Square. So this is...
So they're managing to move them around a little bit though, but I bet there's a lot of casualties in that.
Well, this is it now. This is 4 o'clock, the battle. Trafalgar Square.
Oh my god, this has all been leading up to this moment.
So back to Mr. Revolting.
Mr. Revolting, reporting for duty.
Reporting for duty, there has been a pause in the push.
Oh, fuck.
And shove, and everyone is locking up. A guy has climbed up onto a crane on the south side of the square, holding a pay no poll tax placard. Reaching the top, he edges out.
It's the neighbourhood, the community charge.
We live in a society. Reaching the top, he edges out along the arm of the crane. Suddenly, police horses charge into the demonstration from the Strand, and the crowd parts like a sea. Blood begins to spill. Determined demonstrators, innocent protesters, and officers alike are beginning to get seriously injured.
Yeah, fuck, I can imagine.
One woman is knocked to the ground, following horses trample over her.
Oh my god.
Footage captured shows a group of mounted officers in an attempt to clear the square. They charge at the centre. One officer emerges ahead of the charge. The crowd have dispersed to make a clearing, and the lead horse collides with a woman, and she goes under its hooves. The rest of the charge, which is around 13, directly behind, right over her, and she can be seen rolling underfoot. This isn't a photo of her, but it's a photo of the area at the time.
Oh goodness.
You can see this person narrowly getting out of the way of an os.
Yeah. They're not really caring, are they? And then you've got this fella
They're
on the
just
left coming in
fucking-
to
look
batter
at
him
this
as well.
Jesus Christ.
And they're still coming. They're still coming at him as well.
They're just riding straight through. These guys, they're going to get fucking crushed as well.
Yeah. That guy
Uh,
kind of looks like a comic book character.
Richard Cullen, former chief superintendent, states innocent people will get hit. People will get knocked over by the horses if they're in a demonstration where there's
Horses.
where there's violent demonstrators, because very often there's no way you can get to the violent demonstrators without knocking other people out of the way. So
I mean-
he is a lovely fellow.
Fuck.
He's basically saying, if
You've
you
got to
go to a
break-
protest, you will get run over by a horse.
You've got to crack a few eggs to make an omelette, as I
Because
say.
we have to get to the bad guys. And we're action movie stars, apparently.
I've mounted a minigun on my horse.
Prepare to eat shit, civilian. Luckily, she wasn't badly injured and was taken to Addison Thomas's hospital.
Was this a woman that was trampled? Okay.
Luckily, she got out of it. So,
God bless.
back to Mr. Revolting.
Damn.
Back to Mr. Revolting. The mood becomes more determined. The singing has stopped, reduced to a simple repetitive chant. No poll tax. No
No
poll tax.
poll tax.
No poll tax.
And that's when the crowd started pulling the police off the horses and taking control.
I see other Greenwich lefties in the crowd, including some I've argued with or ignored many times, but none of these disagreements matter right now.
No, I can imagine. Imagine that guy in the front just going, I wonder what that guy's political
Excuse me, you
stance is."
Tory twat.
Watch where you're parking that thing.
Is that really how you're going to deal with a police officer on horseback? Boom, boom. So, 4:15, in another attempt to clear part of the square, the police begin to ram the protesters with cars and vans.
Fucking hell.
A tactic that inflamed and angered the situation.
I could, understandably so. Like, what?
The police say the cars were never used as a tactic, but that communication was so bad on the day, they simply arrived by mistake.
The car got away from me.
I was in my driveway and now I'm here.
Oh,
Total mistake.
he's dead.
Footage shows police vehicles driving into the overcrowded square at speed. Whether they intend to incur injury on anyone or not, the act was seen as pure provocation by the crowd. They fought back. Barriers, traffic signs, and other police equipment were used to smash the windows in and tear into the vehicles.
Oh my goodness. This is savage.
Back to Mr. Revolting.
Mr. Revolting reporting for duty.
The stewards have disappeared. Or at least they've taken off their orange jackets, as some marchers are angry at them for standing alongside the police. One protester near me, urging others not to retaliate, is caught in the middle and he gets hit over the head by a truncheon.
What a great name, a truncheon.
More horses, then police cars, and then riot vans ploughed into the crowd at high speeds.
Oh my goodness.
People are hit and people hit back.
Are killed. These guys are just doing a sit-down protest, aren't they? Or are they injured?
I think everyone is fairly knackered at this point.
Oh,
And this lot doesn't look like the violent part of the crowd, so...
no.
Even with their helmets, shield and truncheons, the police are embattled, overwhelmed by the large numbers, prepared to stand up to their assaults. Determined to do so, placard sticks, beer cans and traffic cones rain down on the police.
I can't imagine a beer can's going to do too much, especially if it's empty.
People have come as protesters, but are being turned into rioters, united. This has turned into a massive riot, bigger than any riot I've ever seen before, even on TV. Bigger than the Notting Hill Carnival riots and the Northern Ireland street fighting in the 1970s. Compared to those crowds, there are many more women involved today. 5 o'clock, builders' huts on the secondary story scaffolding on the side of the South Africa house were set alight momentarily. All police, rioters, and everyone in between stopped and gazed up on the blaze.
Oh my god, yes! I'm so glad you've got a picture of it. Whoa, that's awesome.
Footage of the chaos can be seen, and directly in front, two teenagers sucking face.
Oh, great.
Police were...
Have you got a picture of that as well, Howard?
No, but there is footage of it. Like, there's footage in a documentary. Like, everyone's just kind of stopped and like, Jesus Christ, that's on fire. And then two people are just like,
Might as well make it.
might as well make it. It's warm.
Yeah.
Police were told to clear the square, and now were better equipped riot officers entered the square and coordinated arrests and dispersions.
Level 2 riot officers came in.
Back to revolting for the last stretch. Snatch squads start to grab people. The crowd have thinned out, and it's mainly younger people now. Sensing that the riot is winding down, John and me head to Soho for a drink and some post-match analysis.
We go, we go to the pub for a pint after a good day's work.
We go to the pub and have a pint. So, talk turns to the 10 years of Tory government, council houses sold, unemployment, the Clause 28 attack on gay rights, Alton Bill against abortion rights, the printers, the dockers, the steelworkers, and the miners. So many reasons for today's explosion, really.
Yeah.
We finish our drinks, and we hear shouting coming up the road. Are you imagining it? No poll tax. No poll tax. No poll tax. A bin flies across the street and a shop window shatters.
Whoa.
The riot hasn't wound down. It's on the move.
Oh my gosh. Whoa. I thought this was winding down. Oh my gosh.
The police have lost control of the whole area. Shops are looted as small crowds roam the whole West End, chanting as they go, no poll tax.
No poll tax.
No
poll tax.
6:30, rioters take to the streets of London's commercial West End, defying police barriers and going to war with anyone trying to stop them. The rioters and the looters, though appear to be selective in their targets, they left smaller vendors like newsagents and food stalls. And
they went for the big boys.
And instead had a hunger for the big businesses, the banks and the luxury car showrooms.
Aha!
Back to Mr. Revolting, the TV news.
Mr. Revolting, reported for duty.
Report for duty, General Revolting. The TV news shows a riot continuing long into the night, with the BBC reporting the worst riots seen in the city for a century. Everyone from the Tory and the Labour leaders to some of the organisers of the march are condemning the riot and calling for the perpetrators to be dealt with the utmost severity.
Beat him with your horse.
Run him over, but faster and harder this time. And with
That'll get him.
A car, too.
A car.
A brum. In the Sunday Times, Pat Stack, speaking for the SWP, says, we did not go to the demonstration with any intention of fighting with the police, but we understand why people are angry, and we will not condemn that anger. The morning after. Describing the riot, the TV reporter on the morning news stands in Covent Garden amongst smouldering rubble and burnt-out bins. As he speaks, protesters still buzzing from last night gather in the background, and their hammering returns over the reporter's voice can be heard. No poll tax! No fucking poll tax!
So they're getting their message out as well. These rioters are really good at getting their messages out, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
The riot in the prison, and now this one.
Well, they did what they could to organise it as best as they could while the powers that be tried to just destroy them.
Yeah. And it ended up destroying some of London.
Ended up destroying most of London.
Yeah.
So I feel...
Win-win, I think.
Win-win. Win-win. I feel a mixture of trepidation and increased confidence as we walk onto the estate and begin to knock on doors. On the estate next to mine, each door brings a different response, but no one we meet likes the tax. People see the petition has a growing list of their neighbours' names on it. Along with protests all over the media, the petition shows the growing movement. We hand out A4 posters, no poll tax here, and they soon appear in the windows across the estate. I'm shocked to hear that two of Greenwich's leading revolutionaries have already paid their poll tax.
Oh, so they've already paid it after revolting so much?
Because the council workers' unions didn't vote to not collect. Me and hundreds of thousands of others received summons to appear in court for non-payment of the tax.
Oh.
My friend Keith arrives at the court to find 20 railway workers filling the corridors, loudly joking about not paying, while the police officers on duty keep their distance. Keith asks the railway workers if they have a Mackenzie friend. They're aware this means a layperson who can support them in court. Despite brimming with battling confidence, as a group they admit not knowing their rights, and in court they accept Keith's offer to be a Mackenzie friend.
Okay.
The strategy is to clog up the courts with the maximum number of people appearing, and taking as long as possible to process, thus making it impossible to pursue the millions of other non-taxpayers. With advice from Keith,
So they're clogging up the...
with advice
smart.
With advice from Keith, each of the rail workers uses up precious minutes, and soon the judge's short morning session is over, and everyone goes down a pub to celebrate.
Lovely. Only 54 arrested.
Every story in this guy that reads ends with a visit to the pub.
I know, yeah.
I like it.
He likes to wait for it to blow over.
Well, that was great. Let's go to the pub. Across the country, these scenes have been repeated, and the courts are grinding to a halt. The no poll tax here posters in the people's windows didn't fare so well. The no was printed in red for emphasis, and the red fades quicker than the black, so after the summer they read poll tax here. The rulers want vengeance for the riot, and many are jailed for the fight in the courts for months. The non-aligned Trafalgar Square Defendants Campaign is set up, acquires more than 50 hours of police video, which is used to acquit many of the other 491 defendants. I bump into a friend who dropped out of the political activity shortly before the poll tax. He tells me he was lazing on a boat in Hyde Park on a sunny afternoon when clouds broke and black smoke appeared in the sky. He had no idea what he was missing.
So he didn't even... What? He just came because he was like, oh, looks interesting.
Fuck? The Observer newspaper writes, once the tax is abolished, if the poll tax is dead, it was killed by non-payment, a tactic which each of the three main parties insisted was pointless and wrong. Extra-parliamentary action, the nightmare of Westminster politicians, proved itself and, in the process, exposed the hollowness of our claims to democracy. This week, each and every one of those non-payers should feel very proud of themselves.
Yeah.
By the end of the riot, 399 arrests were made and 113 non-fatal injuries were recorded.
Still a lot of arrests, though, to be honest.
45 police officers were among them, as well as 20 police horses.
Oh, no, not the horses.
No. I couldn't find an official statement, but apparently the police reported 542 injured officers over the
542?
over the 45. But I can't back that up, so...
We'll
Not
have
sure.
to just guess.
But it's been reported in several places, even though most places report 45 police officers were injured.
Okay. I want to assume the more, because that's a more
Yeah.
devastating story.
Property damage and repair costs were estimated at 400,000. Thatcher said of the events,
Was royally pissed.
"These people are totally against democracy. There is no excuse, even for people turning to violence, none whatsoever."
Or what?
What, and in the butt. The events of the day would spell the beginning of the end for Thatcher and would lead to her downfall in the November of the same year. Happy birthday. Being pushed out of the party, her successor John Major announced the abolition of the tax in the spring of 91 and in 1993 replaced it with the council tax. Similar to the rating system that preceded the poll tax, the main differences were that it was levied on capital value rather than notional rental value of the property, and that it had a 25% discount for single occupancy dwellings, which we still have today.
Yep.
In 2015, Lord Waldegrave reflected in his memoirs that the poll tax was all his own work and that it was a very serious mistake. Although he felt the policy looked like it would work, it was implemented differently from his predictions. They went, his quote, "They went gung-ho and introduced it overnight in one go, which was never my plan, and I thought they must know what they're doing. But they didn't.
They really didn't.
They really didn't." Sources for that, a bunch of Wikipedia articles listed. The Bollocks to the Poll Tax, Colin Revolting article. I Predict a Riot, the Battle for Trafalgar Square, a Poll Tax Riot documentary.
I predict a riot.
And an excerpt from People Power, a BBC documentary. And that is the end of the Battle for Trafalgar
This very
Square.
long episode of the podcast, as I do believe. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you very much for listening. I've lost my voice.
So have I. Are we all dead? Can we agree that I am tired?
Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the very special episode of Clueless Internet podcast. If you didn't, all right.
Fair enough. Bye.
I get it. It was fairly long, but that's the end. Thank you very much for listening. Alex,
so
would you
much.
sign me off?
Thank you, everyone. If you want to see all the links for this podcast, it's cluelessinter.net. You can find us at cluelessnet on Twitter. You can also email us at podcast@cluelessinter.net. We will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.